Hi, everybody. Emma here from Yellow Brick Road, helping you build your confidence whilst building my own. I hope everybody is good on this Wednesday evening. So, as some of you know, I have a confidence building platform called Yellow Brick Roads. Every week, once a week, I invite a professional on to talk about how we can stay healthy mentally, physically, and emotionally during this time. If anyone has any comments, I've just seen a couple of comments pop up, which I don't normally see, so I don't know why. So I'm hoping this is all streaming fine. So yeah, I've got a lovely lady in today called Felicity. I'm going to get Felicity to introduce herself because we have a burning question for you, Felicity, that keeps coming through. I know you know what it is. We have a burning question for you. We want to have a chat with you about something. But if you can just introduce yourself for me first, then we will go into the questions.
Thank you. Well, it's lovely to be here, Emma, again. I work in leadership development. So, same as everybody else at the moment, I'm pivoting. So I was working with quite a lot of corporate clients and small business clients, but now I'm working with individuals and helping people develop to be the leader that they want to be, to cause their tribe to thrive. Now, before I would have said teams, but now we're outside a corporate environment. So moving forward, I'm working with anybody that's either a leader, whether you have a role with that title, or whether you lead a community group, you lead your family, and people that are aspiring to be a leader, particularly in this what's called new paradigm shift, where the world is changing so rapidly and we don't really know how things are going to move forward, but we can take responsibility and lead if we choose to, whatever our walk of life. So that's where I've pivoted with my business. And so, yes, leadership is the short answer. Gave you a bit of a long one there.
Fantastic. No, that's cool. And I met you. So I met Felicity, 3 years ago, maybe?
3 years, yeah.
At some training. Felicity was delivering some training for a company that I work with. And that was around, it was all personal development, wasn't it, really, that the training that you were giving us then?
Mm-hmm. And leadership development, because you were the leadership team, weren't you, there?
That's it, yeah. And I remember coming away and feeling so empowered about everything that you had to say. One of the focuses for me, I know, was around mindset. And I've become fascinated with that ever since, and how our thinking can change our actions, change our results.
Yeah, totally.
So the question that I have for you, and it's one of those that I know every single person at some point, especially in this environment, struggles with. So we all have our goals, we all have somewhere we're heading, but the majority of the time, we just can't seem to get there. So I've put here the burning question. We all have our dreams and we have our great ideas on what we want. So why is it that the majority of us don't get what we want? What is it that's holding us back and preventing us from moving forwards?
Well, there's a lot of elements to it, isn't there? And as you said, mindset's one of them. But it's a big part of it is how we see ourselves. What's our personal identity? Do you see yourself as a successful person? Do you see yourself as somebody that's able to achieve? Or have you grown up in a family where, with all the best will in the world, they would have been threatened by you doing better than what the family had already done up until that point? I mean, you're a bit younger than me, and my mother never said it to me, but I have certainly had lots of friends who we used to talk about this and parents would say, "Oh, that's not for the likes of us. That's not, we're not those kind of people." So that can be really challenging because, of course, our ultimate tribe is our family. And even if, you've got a good relationship with your family or a turbulent relationship with your family, they're the ones that instill your beliefs from a very early age. And if you're to go against those beliefs, it takes a lot of effort. And most of the time, we're adhering to certain beliefs and not even conscious of it. We're just running patterns. I do this because X, Y, Z. This is what we've always done. And we don't necessarily question it. So if we can see ourselves as someone that's able to achieve and be successful and then it's much easier for us to put together those baby steps or an action plan. But if we don't, and it's the same thing, you know, as I know there's a lot of women on the call tonight. So it's that thing, isn't it, around, say you want to lose weight. Say you've decided you want to lose weight or get fitter, and somebody will say to you, you look fabulous. Don't worry about it. You don't need to lose weight. You look fabulous. Well, it could be, you know, someone that you respect the most in the world that's saying that to you, and you know they're being genuine and you know they're being honest. But if you don't look in the mirror and believe that for yourself, your own personal identity, it doesn't matter what anyone says. You're just, you know, you're not going to believe that you are fabulous and beautiful, and you're just going to be looking at the bulges and things like that. So our identity is so, so powerful. And for most, well, psychologists say that it's largely formed between the ages of 2 and 7, where children just accept everything like a sponge without questioning. So it's as we get older that we have to step back and reflect and start to ask ourselves questions that challenge actually the foundation of what we believe in.
And that's really hard, isn't it?
It's huge, yeah.
When you've got those beliefs, especially when we all talk to ourselves, don't we, in our own minds? And I see it as every time we tend to talk to ourselves in a certain way. So it might be my mum, and is an example for this. She's forever saying "I'm sorry," and I don't know why she says "I'm sorry." Sometimes she doesn't even do anything to say, but she's just programmed herself to constantly say "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And I think it then becomes a habit. You're then through the way that you see yourself and what you believe in, your actions become habitual, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's not always even that as well. If you think about a metaphor, it's like we're like icebergs. What goes on in our head, in our, you know, our rational thinking conscious mind is only like 5% of who we are. That's the tip of the iceberg. But like with an iceberg, the rest is underneath the surface, and that's all those parts of us that have been ingrained in us, first of all from family, then probably from education, then from society, the culture that we live in. I think one of the big things about I'm sorry is we're British, and even though we you know, we've got more of an eclectic mix now, we're, you know, famously polite, aren't we? And self-deprecating, putting ourselves down, and no, it's my fault, and silly old me, and da, da, da. That's always been a very British thing, because it was, you know, not considered to be polite or just nice to be showing off about yourself. So we went to the other extreme, and then we're always apologetic and putting ourselves down.
Totally. Yeah.
Whereas if you're American, you've been brought up to American dream. Yes, you know, you do speak about your achievements. You're proud of your country. That's all part of the culture. So different from us as British people.
So it's sort of trying to reprogram your beliefs, isn't it? It's trying to install the right beliefs and get rid of the ones that are telling you can't achieve, are telling you who do you think you are, all those sort of things that we say to ourselves, you know, who do you think you are to be able to do this, or you're not going to achieve it because of X, or you'll never get to that point because of X. It's trying to reprogram that story.
Totally. And I think it's you know, because it can sound a bit scary to, we do talk about programs and we do run behavioral programs, but to kind of make it a little bit more accessible for everybody, it's what information are we putting in? So how are we talking to ourselves, as you said? But also, if you want to be better and do better, or not even better necessarily, different, what information are you giving yourself around that desire to change that's supporting that? And I think that's the second part is, you know, we all want to fit in and we want to belong. So if we're someone who, you know, wants to change, wants to develop, and our friends and family aren't, then, you know, because they like us as we are, they're going to not necessarily be as supportive. I think I was saying to you, I madly did a 7-day juice fast a couple of weeks ago. Really not the best time when food is, you know, one of our pleasures that we can actually access at the moment. I decide to deprive myself of alcohol, coffee, sugar, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but even that simple thing like that, I had a couple of friends like, oh no, don't do it now, it's too hard now, do it later. And thankfully I had a couple of friends as well, oh, that's really great, well done, but we want to fit in, we don't want to feel like the weirdo. And if our behavior is too different to our tribe, family, friends, etc., then we can feel as though we're losing rapport. So because we understand what we know, we understand common norms, aren't we? Felicity always behaves like this, Emma always behaves like this, and then if we start to behave differently, sometimes people take that as a challenge about how they're living their lives, even though it's absolutely not necessarily.
It's unfamiliar, isn't it? It's the unfamiliar, and then people get nervous. We all get nervous when there's unfamiliar. No different to what's going on at the moment. It's the unknown. It's that it's not the norm as we know it.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's quite an uncomfortable place for a lot of people. So what could be the first thing? What could be the first thing if you've got a goal and you're like, right, this is what I want to achieve. This is my goal. This is where I want to go. What's the first thing people can do to take action in achieving it? Would that be it? Thinking about how you're talking to yourself, trying to install the right beliefs around it?
Well, do you know what? I think it's always good to get whatever's going on in your head out of your head and down on paper, and that whether that's just a proper I haven't been drinking, I promise. Brain dump, where you just like whatever's going on in your head, I want to achieve this, and just get it all out on paper. And then from there, you can kind of refine it and say, okay, I want to achieve this. Why do I want to achieve it? What's it going to bring to my life? And, even if it's like, oh, I want to earn an extra X £1,000 a year. Well, that's fine. But what will that extra, not £10,000 a year, what will that give you? So it's actually drilling down to what is it that I really want out of this, because the deeper that we can drill down, the more we're likely to get really engaged with that and get and then think about, so emotionally, how will I feel when I achieve that goal? I'll feel a sense of pride, I'll feel a sense of joy. If it is earning extra money that gives me better income, better quality of living, maybe I'll feel a greater sense of security or peace. So it's really combining the emotions, because otherwise it's just and emotion is the language of the unconscious mind, which is the big part of the iceberg. So we want to engage that bit, because otherwise if we're just thinking about it intellectually, then how many training courses have you been to where you've gone through a whole, really good workshop and thought, oh yeah, and you've done what they call, given it an intellectual nod. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. And then immediately forgotten it, because you've got so many other things coming on and coming into life that have got an emotional charge. So the more we add good emotion to something, then that we get really engaged with what that goal is going to give us.
Yes, it's creating that feeling, isn't it? I know when I made the move, the relocation, and I was petrified, but I was always focusing on how I would feel, but not just how I would feel doing the move, how I would feel sitting in the front garden, living on a farm and looking out at the cows and sheep, how I would feel seeing my kids having so much space to run around in. I was always really visualizing those little things that pulled me towards it so much more.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And if you think about successful athletes, they all talk about using visualization, don't they? Imagining themselves. He's not a current player, but Andre Agassi, he said he was, time and time again, he envisaged himself lifting up the Wimbledon trophy, and how would he feel? What would the weight feel like in his arms? What would the crowd sound like? And he just completely brainwashed himself effectively, so that it just felt really, really real to him.
Yeah, I've written down here, because I know I did a live video a few weeks back with a head teacher, and it was all around the children and how, what we can do when it comes to homeschooling. And she was really focused on a growth versus a fixed mindset. And she was saying how obviously with her pupils, she really they do a lot of work in building growth mindsets into the children, because if they've got that growth mindset, they know that anything's possible, that if they try and they practice and they put in the time and they have the belief and they use all those little tools, that they can get to where they're going. She said, whereas if they've got a fixed mindset and they go, I can't do math because my parents were no good at it, or I can't do that because they believe they can't, and then it doesn't go anywhere.
That's right.
There's a guy that I follow, I can't think of his name now, but he says the only belief that matters is the belief that you can grow and get better.
Lovely.
So if you believe you can grow and get better and you've got a growth mindset, then you will achieve. It may take a little bit of time, but you will achieve it.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point as well, Emma, because we're all at different stages. We're all dealing with the pandemic differently. So some people have already been really productive and, they've kind of pivoted their businesses and they're, hit the ground running. They're glad of this opportunity because it's pushed them into taking action that they didn't have time to take or just hadn't got around to taking. But there's some people at the other end of the scale where this is still a bit of a shock. And as much as they think, okay, it could be an opportunity, they're still feeling a bit overwhelmed with the whole situation. So I would suggest that people, depending on where you are, you create a plan that works for you. And for most of us at various stages through this last 6 weeks or so it's been, hasn't it now, we've had to take baby steps at some point. And I think baby steps is a really, really good place to start. And once you've got that and you've developed a habit of taking a little baby step every day, then you can start to build momentum.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. My next question, we always seem to be looking for validation from other people.
Yes.
So why is that? Because I know if you're waiting for someone else's approval, it's never going to happen, because there's always going to be someone or something that's going to prevent you from doing it. So why do you feel that why is it that we have to follow these social norms? We have to sort of do what everybody else is doing, rather than just going, right, this is my goal, I'm going to get it down on paper, and like you said, I'm going to take those baby steps towards it, because I believe the validation is what holds a lot of people back.
Definitely. And absolutely. The reason that we look for validation goes back to that, imprinting from the ages of 2 to 7. It's a real survival instinct, because when you're a baby, if your mum's not pleased with you, you might not, you might get abandoned. Now that is extreme. Of course, we know it's unusual for mothers or fathers to abandon their children, but it is a primal thing that's there for survival. So the baby will look for, you're a mum, so you know this better than me, they'll look for, is the mum smiling at me? Is she laughing at me? Because then there's safety. So, and back to that tribe thing as well, as we get older, we want to feel like we fit in. Another thing, not even just the soup fast thing. I was thinking about this preparing for this call. I can remember for years, I've meditated probably since I was about 15. I didn't tell people for years that I meditated, because I didn't want to be looked at as a nutter and a weirdo and a new age, this, that, and the other. And I didn't realize until very recently that I still carried that caution. I would mention it with people sometimes, but it certainly wasn't something that I would talk about very openly. Until, working with my last client that I was on a retainer with for 18 months, the team were all talking about headspace and using, there's now apps, aren't there? And I also got more open about it because of the value that I know it can bring people. Because whether you look at it from a spiritual point of view or a metaphysical point of view, from a physical point of view, it strengthens our immune system. It puts our body back into homeostasis so it can repair. So even if you just do 10 minutes meditation a day for that, then it's worth it. But
totally.
But I was still carrying that belief system that people would think I was weird, probably 10 years out of it, 10 years after, people wouldn't have even raised an eyebrow about it. And we do this, we can carry patterns through, and we're holding ourselves back because we want to fit in. So going back to the validation, I think it takes a lot of, some of the things we're talking about are simple to understand, but they're not necessarily easy. And I think validation, looking for external validation, is one of the biggest things, because what do you do? If your friends, your work colleagues don't fully accept you, well, okay, you can live with that. But what about if it's your friends or your family? That's so much harder. But it takes work to develop the sense of self-esteem where you can accept the fact that they might not understand and agree with you, and they might even be more dismissive than that. But if you've worked on your own self-esteem and believe that whoever it is, whatever they think of me, I can love them unconditionally, particularly with family, such a huge learning curve, that one. Love them unconditionally, understand it's just where they are, and carry on and be the person I am and fulfill what I want to create for my life. But it is not easy. It's really challenging,
isn't it? I think it's so uncomfortable, and you feel initially, I think, that you're being something that you're not, because you're being brave, or you're trying to, you're going through that growth period. You sort of feel how I did. I felt I was going through something, but when you go through it, it's such an amazing thing at the end of it. No different to your goals. When you want to reach your goals, the little steps that you're taking, the first step is the hardest. It's so uncomfortable. But as you're taking those little steps, and you're just getting that little bit further ahead to whatever it is that you want. You start to build momentum, like you said, and you start to you soon move through it, and the grass becomes greener, doesn't it? It becomes easier.
Well, I think the thing about self-esteem, self-love, whatever you want to call it, accepting yourself, is it just becomes you have such a sense of ease about it. And I know you and I have talked. I think in some ways, I would never have said this for years, I had a very difficult relationship with my mum growing up, and she was very disapproving and very critical for most of my life. And of course, it broke my heart, many, many years. But I got to the point over the last few years, and it wasn't easy. It didn't take 5 minutes, where I understood that she was just where she was. She'd had a lot of challenges in her life that she hadn't addressed, that she hadn't had counselling for or support for, and she didn't get me. She wanted me to conform and fit into a model of right from the age of about 15, when I started to think for myself, and I've always been quite a strong character. That did not fit with her model of the world at all. I was supposed to do as I was told, and she wanted me to become a vet and all of this, and I was thinking about other things and just generally being disobedient and frivolous, but I got to the stage with her, and as you know, she passed recently, thankfully peacefully in her sleep at 92, which is a wonderful gift for all of us. But it got to the point where I was no longer valuing myself out of her impression of me. And that just also, that allowed me, one, to be just completely at ease with and at peace with myself, but also at peace with her. I didn't blame her for not being the mother I'd wanted her to be. And the last 2 years of her life, we had a pleasant relationship, and it was very, very healing. So it wasn't easy, but I'm really grateful for that experience. As I say, I don't think I'd have, to ask me 10 years ago, I would have been like, don't be ridiculous. But I am grateful, because it's made me strong enough to know, even someone as close as my mother, if she didn't get me and thought I was wrong with what I was doing with my life, well, I can love and respect her and have you know, a good relationship without thinking that there's anything wrong with me or that I was wrong.
Sure.
But it does take a lot.
That comes down to self-acceptance, doesn't it? Self-acceptance,
Totally. Yeah.
confidence in what you're
Yes.
doing and what you want and where you're going.
Yes.
Self-esteem.
But it also takes, and this, I mean, the pandemic, there have been so many good things that have come out of it, as well as the challenges. This is a real time to reflect. And I think because of the relationship with my mum and the kind of the nature that my personality in, you know, when I was younger, I was always asking, you know, how could I be different? How could I be better? How could I be more acceptable? So I was, as you say, always asking those questions. And then as I started to do personal development work, I was asking myself healthier questions, you know, like, how can I treat my mum with respect and respect myself and respect my values and my choices as well? So it's all very much about the conversation, as you say, but it's about the questions we ask ourselves too.
Yeah.
And I think with goals, you know, and when people say, oh, I can't do that, that's too hard for me, question that I get clients to work with just to throw in that is so simple, but it helps you start to reset the brain because it's really playful. And it's, well, what if I could do that? What if I could?
Yeah.
And that just, you know, our brains are computers. When we ask them a question, they'll come up with an answer. So if you say, I could never do that, then your brain will probably come up with all the reasons why you can't do it. But if you was to say, well, why, you know, what if I could do that? And if I could do it, what would be my first step? Then your brain will help you look for those answers as well.
Yeah, so ask the right questions. And that's the thing, I think we're not really even aware that we're asking ourselves questions. We're asking ourselves questions all of the time.
That's right.
So if you get the wrong questions, then you're not going to get the result. You're not going to get the answer that you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. The next question I've got here, most people feel stuck and they would rather avoid the pain than gain pleasure.
Yeah.
And I know, so Tony Robbins talks about this, doesn't he, in the Dicky process?
Yeah.
Is there any way we can flip that around? And what I mean by that, if no one understands, is that a lot of the times we may have a goal or something that we want to achieve, and rather than focusing on the pleasure that we're going to get out of achieving it, we don't go there because we're stuck in the pain of achieving it. You know, the fear and the pain. So we'd rather not reach that goal because of the pain and the fear than go for the goal and get the pleasure. So is there any way, because I think if we've got a growth mindset and we can flip that around, then we're sort of onto a win-win in the sense that we're not going to be focusing on the pain. We're going to be thinking about gaining the pleasure.
Sure. I think that's a really nice way of putting it, Emma. And I think, you know, sometimes we are so focused on the pain that it makes us resistant to taking the steps to gain the pleasure. So I would then, instead of focusing on the pleasure, I would focus more on the pain of, if I don't change, what's it going to cost me? You know, if I carry on eating like this for the next 10 years, how's my body going to be? How's my health going to be? Or if I don't create say you haven't moved down to Devon, how would it be for your girls to be stuck in you know, suburbia during the pandemic right now? You know, I know you wouldn't necessarily have been, you know, of course you wouldn't have known about the pandemic, but what are the costs of not changing, and really focus on that pain as well? You know, we try to stay positive and think things through, you know, what we can create and achieve, but go for it and think of worst case scenario. What will happen if I don't change, if I don't take the steps to achieve this goal? We look like we've lost Emma at the moment. I'm going to see if I'm going to jump off. We may be back. I'm going to try and contact her now.
Are you there?
Yes.
Are you there? I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened.
Right. I was like, no, that's right.
Okay.
That's all right. Well, literally, I
just live video.
finished making my point, which was saying, you know, if you're pain focused and you actually want to change and the pleasure's not getting you there, then focus on worst case scenario of pain. What will it cost you if you don't change?
Yes. I've actually put that here. And when you said that, it made me think, yes, that's it. So it's your triggers. It's your triggers. So for me, when you say that, I think of how am I going to feel? So like you say, if you can't focus on the pleasure, really feel the pain as in the fact that if you don't do it, how's that going to make you feel when you're, you know, in your 80s or in your 90s and you're unable to take, you know, even get out of bed, and you're laying there thinking, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I give that a try? Your family's in a particular place and you were thinking of doing something else, and you're looking back thinking, why didn't I make the change?
Absolutely.
That's a massive, if you can really relate it to something really uncomfortable, that could push you through, couldn't it? That could make you involved.
And as we said earlier, really engage in the feelings. What would you feel like if you just basically just let your life drift away, and there you are, sitting in on your sofa thinking about, hang on a minute, what have I done with my life for the last 30, 40 years? Did I live? Did I make a positive difference for my family, or did I just exist? You know?
And I think there's so many, we decide to do so many things, don't we? We make decisions to do so many different things, but we don't actually do those things. So when you decide to do something, it's just a decision. It literally is a decision. It's a thought, and it's a decision you've made. It's not until you actually do it that you're going to change your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So doing is so different. So would you say any tips on how we can commit and start taking the first step? And before you go into that, I am just going to share, because I love this. This is Felicity's Success Planner. It's a fantastic success planner. There's so much information in it. You've got sort of pages where you can put dates, AM, PM, all of your notes. There's so much in there. You can put your priorities in there, today's successes, lessons learned. It's an amazing success planner. I actually use the 6-minute diary as a gratitude diary. I use it in the morning and in the evening. But what I love about this, Felicity, is you can do your gratitude in here, so you can do it all in one place, which is so nice. Otherwise, I find I'm carrying like 3 or 4 books around.
Exactly.
When it comes to this, I think up until Friday evening, Felicity's got a code on her website, and the details are in the link. I'm going to put them up in the banner now. Those details in the banner now. But the details are above this feed, above this video. You can access it for 50% off. So take a look at her website. It's a great planner. But is there any tips that you have for us that can help people get closer towards their goals, to help them take those small steps?
So we've talked about, haven't we, first of all, getting it out of our head, getting that brain dump, getting it down on paper. So, and then break it down. So what are the first baby steps I can take? And then, I mean, we were talking about the planner the other day. I designed it for clients, and I had not been using it myself. So, you know, coming into to the pandemic initially, it was all kind of like a bit, whoa, you know, what's going on? And we were all resetting. And I was being productive, but I didn't really have much of a plan to move things forward. So I decided to, you know, physician heal thyself, go back to the planner, because it is very accessible in that, you know, I've modeled it from some other planners I've used in the past and tried to bring the best of it together. And Emma, you very kindly helped me tweak it as well. You beta tested it with me. So there's some tips in there from Emma as well. But it was about not just a to-do list. It's okay, what are the 3 priorities that I want to focus on today? Who's the person I want to be today to help me show up and do that? But it talks about successes. You know, what did I achieve today that I'm proud of? And what are the lessons that I've learned? And then once a week, you know, you set the main priorities you want to set. At the end of the week, there's a reflection time. So how was your week? 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10. And if it was whatever score, why? So it's very much about reflection and celebration. And I heard something this week that really helped me as well, because I can be a bit of a perfectionist, a bit hard on myself. He said he sets 3 priorities a day, but at the end of the day, as long as he's achieved 3 things, they may not be those exact 3 priorities, but if I've achieved 3 things, I still count that as a success. And I think that helps us to be more flexible and less rigid and less critical of ourselves. As long as we're moving forward and we gaining momentum, and that's the whole thing about goals, isn't it? You know, once you start moving and you're in flow and you get some speed up, it's so much easier. You know, you're a runner, aren't you? So the first 10 minutes of a run are the most torturous, aren't they?
Yeah, but once you get once you get into flow and you're, you know, you've got past that where you feel like you can't breathe. And your mind, I think it just takes a bit of time as well. Running's great, I think, mentally, because it just sort of lets you, you know, just, I don't know, drift off a little bit. And it does. Once you get past that certain place, it becomes a lot easier. You're talking about 3, sorry to quickly butt in, you're talking about 3 commits each day. I use an app, which is really good, and it's called Commit to 3 app. And it's so simple. It's genius, really, the guy that's come up with it. The simple things are just so good in the sense that you can just put in your 3 things that you're going to focus on that day. And we're always on our phones. So you put in your 3 goals or the 3 things you want to achieve that day. And then at the end of the day, you just press a button and it just ticks them off. And if anything, like you said, just having those 3 things, you can go, yep, I did them. What I set myself to do, I did. And I achieved it. And that gives you momentum to keep going as well.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. What we're trying to do is actually create success habits. We're creating the habit of, thinking about what we want to achieve in our day, and then celebrating it and reflecting on it and tweaking it. And, you know, I use apps as well. I'm old school. I quite like to have something to write down, but, you know, use whatever works for you, isn't it? It's, you know, we're one size does not fit all, and everything we want to create our own success plan for us as individuals. But what I liked about the planner that I modeled was it's only for 13 weeks, 3 months. So at the end of that 3 months, you can go back and reflect and think, hang on a minute, I've achieved all of these things. And that's such a nice feeling. And then from there, that gives you momentum, because it's so important. I mean, the world, we'll see what happens when we come out of this fully. But, you know, that whole thing before, busyness. From, you know, I know some industries are even busier, but there has been for many of us the opportunity to, and for me, particularly being an entrepreneur and always feeling like working on the business, I, you know, was able to reflect and think, Felicity, what are you achieving with all this busyness all the time? And I've given myself the opportunity to have days off, which as an entrepreneur, even saying that, I'm still working with that. Entrepreneur having a day off, but we've got to, because that fuels our creativity and that fuels our, you know, our reset, our relaxation, and just, you know, we weren't designed to work like dogs, but that's become the norm over the last couple of generations, and hopefully this reset will, you know, we've all had a chance to look at the things that are important to us.
Definitely. I think as well, even the more you practice the busyness, it becomes a habit, doesn't it? The more you're doing that, the more you feel you've got to run around. I can't think, I was watching something the other day and she was talking about like being a woman, and for me, like being a parent, getting up, putting the washing in, getting the washing out, doing something, you know, you always feel you need to do the next thing. You don't feel like you can sit down and have a cup of tea or whatever and take a bit of time out. It's constant. Going from one thing to the next. But I think that becomes a habit.
Totally. Well, it becomes an addiction. You're addicted to the adrenaline, aren't you? It's like
business.
Yes, totally. I'm busy, so therefore I must be achieving. But actually, are we? And it's that thing when we go on holiday, isn't it? That some very high-powered business people, the first couple of days of their holiday, they can't relax. because they're addicted to that.
Yeah, fast pace.
Pressure. Yeah, yeah. So
brilliant.
Yeah, life is more precious than that. It's not all about just work.
No, you got to enjoy it.
Even if you love it, we need time with people that we love, out in nature, just taking time to smell the roses.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Felicity, for joining us.
You're welcome, my dear. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. This is Felicity's Success Planner. Like I say, the details and how you can access that is above this video, but the discount is
one for women as well, isn't it? So it's got quotes by women for women every day as well.
Yes. The details are above the feed in this feed, so check it out. But the discount is only up until Friday. And I created a blog. Based around taking action and how I believe that action can actually limit or reduce your anxiety. So I've created a blog around that, and I just pulled together this little free download if you want to access it. All the details, again, are above this video. But thank you for those that have been watching. Felicity, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure, Emma. Thank you.
Thank you, my darling. And I will catch up with you soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Lovely evening. Bye-bye.